Hello, everybody. Good day to you all, and welcome to the 18th session of our YSBC Web Lecture Series. The topic of today's conversation is Transforming the Power of Sports for Social Change, with our speaker, Mr. Yoan Noguier, co-founder and managing director, Yunus Sports Hub, and our moderator today is Mr. Christel Saneh, athlete, illustrator, and sports journalist. Mr. Yoan, former procurement manager of Rio 2016 Olympic and Paralympic Games, he became a part of the Yunus network in 2017 while advocating about the potential social outcome of sporting events. After a successful collaboration resulting in the signature of an agreement with Paris 2024 and the International Olympic Committee, the Yunus Sports Hub was created. Our moderator today, Ms. Christel, is a Lebanese athlete, sports photographer, and illustrator. She started her journey in journalism at the age of 16 and later joined the IOC Young Reporters program to cover the 2014 Youth Olympic Games in China. She then covered the Rio 2016 Olympic Games and produced a comic titled Competing for a Change which covers the story of three Arab female athletes who competed at the Olympic Games. In 2019, she was appointed by the IOC president to the IOC Communication Commission. At the same year, she covered the Doha 2019 World Athletics Championship as a photographer and will be in Tokyo 2020 to cover the Olympic event. We have a great combination today, and we look forward to hearing the story of the Yunus Sports Hub through Mr. Yoan. So without further delay, let us welcome Professor Mohammad Yunus for his opening remarks and start the conversation. Professor Yunus.
Thank you, Zinat. I'm delighted to be with you again, and this time with a very fascinating conversation with Yoan and Christel. And welcome to all of you who are participating in it. Very special kind of conversation we will have today, and two very important persons in the area of social business and sports. It's very strange the way I got to meet Yoan. I had no idea who he was and what he was doing until I was invited to Rio for the Olympic. And I was given the task by the Olympic Committee to be a torchbearer in that Olympic torchbearer for the Rio Olympic. So I was enjoying that. And while I was doing it, I met this young person and who was at that time manager for procurement for the Rio Olympic. So that was quite a kind of surprise for me, why this young man should be responsible for procurement. Procurement is a big issue, and it's a billion-dollar businesses that goes on into it in each of the Olympic. So we saw him and very impressed. And in the meantime, during that session, I got involved with the IOC, talking about social business in sports and so on. And I was invited to go to Paris to discuss that. And I saw lots of response in the social business idea from sports side. So when time came, we thought, is the Olympic over? Then Ivan will be available for our Grameen GCL. And we hired him for GCL and started doing this all exploration part. And that led to many other issues. And he became a sort of a blind man's stick for me in the sports world to touch the sports, because I have no idea where the one is, what the sports world is. He took me around and showed me all the points. And gradually he came to the point of creating an independent entity by itself. It's called Yunus Sports Hub. And Yunus Sports Hub is the one that he's representing. He's the founder and now the CEO of the Yunus Sports Hub, and all the activities that he is doing. So wonderful stories to tell in the short period, the accomplishments he has made, and a very important discussion. And then comes Christel, another wonderful discovery for us. We never heard of a sports person mixing with journalism, writing, and all kinds of things he does. It's a very unusual combination she has. So she is the one who will be have a conversation with Yoan, and we are looking forward to this conversation. Welcome, Christel. This floor is yours. Now it's your show. You take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Yunus, and thank you, Yunus Center, for inviting me to be part of this session. It's a pleasure also, Yoan, to be with you in this discussion. We've met a long time ago, and I'm happy to be here. I'm going to introduce myself. So yes, as you said, I have many hats.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, I'm an athlete, illustrator, and sports journalist. I first met you, Professor Yunus, in 2018 in Buenos Aires at the Youth Olympic Games. And I was part of the IOC Young Leaders Program. It's the International Olympic Committee Young Leaders Program. And when I heard you over there, your words mainly clicked because I had like similar story. And when you were saying that start small and give back to the community and social business can make a change, I looked back at myself when I was 16 because I tackled the problem, which was the lack of media coverage in my country for my sport, which is athletics. And that's how it started. I didn't know that at one day I would make it as a social business, but I started doing the job as an athlete, being a journalist at the same time, to shed the light on these athletes who weren't receiving any coverage. And this was like the main problem that I tried to tackle over the years. And after 10 years of working in this field, I met Yunus Sports Hub, the family of Yunus Sports Hub, and it was part of the Social Business Champions, a program that you guys did. And I turned my page, which is called Track and Field Society, into a social business after 10 years for working, doing the job without thinking of a long-term and sustainability or anything. So it was due to your support that I managed to turn it into a social business. And today we're going to cover this topic, how we can include sports and social business together to make an impact in this world and to work towards social change, because sports has a power. And as Nelson Mandela used to say, sports has the power to change the world. And we've seen it in many examples throughout, especially the Olympic Games, how it was a mean for social change and social justice, especially lately with everything that is happening in the world. It is something very powerful that we have to use smartly. And social business, as I defined it, because Yoan, you're gonna be defining it in a few, is in the middle between NGO and the business. So it's mainly tackling a problem to give back to the society and solve it and continue to prospect in it and as on the long term. So today in this session with Yoan, you're the co-founder of Yunus Sports Hub. We're gonna define the social business concept. We will provide you with very concrete examples of social business in sports and provide you with the vision behind sport and social business and how it can be achieved so that more people can join us in this journey. So today, Yoan, we have people coming from the sporting world and people coming from the social business world. How do you define social business, or how can you remind us about what is social business for people who comes from sports?
Thank you, Christel. And first of all, before I even answer to your question, a huge thanks to Yunus Center for putting this together. It's a fantastic time on a monthly basis to reach everybody else. I would say that I was looking at the audience list before, and there seems that there's a lot of people that we know from the social business sector, but also some new people that are joining us more from the sport aspect. So of course, maybe a bit of, as you said, Christel, a bit of a reminder about let's say the idea, even behind the Yunus Sports Hub. So of course, as you all know, Professor Yunus has created this social business concept and defines it as a non-dividend organization to solve a social or environmental problem. And when you look in the sense of the development of social business today, social business is a real movement in more than 100 countries and many hundreds of organizations that are working towards the direction of solving issues using business techniques. So if we look into what Yunus Sports Hub role is inside this rich ecosystem, it's nothing else, nothing more than putting this network, this knowledge, and this concept at the service of the sport industry. We know that social business is sector agnostic. It works in all the industries, but we also found out that sport is a very much of a fertile ground for social business to flourish. So the idea behind the Yunus Sports Hub is basically to promote this social business concept and bring the word to the sport world, but also to help them implement, because a lot of time when when we speak about social business at sport conferences, or especially when Professor Yunus does it, it may interest people. So at some point comes the next question, which is, okay, but how do we get involved? And that's also how the Yunus Sports Hub come up, by putting all of this network at the disposal of the sports industry. So this is in a few words what there is behind the Yunus Sports Hub, and more generally how we connect sport and social business.
Thank you, Yoan. As you said, it's like sports is a business in itself. There is a lot to do in it, and the core, if you want, the core element of sports are the athletes. So, and we know that not all of the athletes can have like a constant revenue, or they can sustain a career, especially at a competitive level, because we have like the elite who have the support of the government, their National Olympic committees or sponsors, but we have the majority of the athletes who come in after the elite, or even some of them are elite, who cannot finance their own career, or who look for part-time jobs or full-time jobs to be able to do both. How can they profit from social business to finance their own career for the future?
I think that even before answering this, I think that taking one step back, what we're talking about here is solving one very specific problem, which is in that case the problem of athletes financially struggling. Mm. More generally, I think that social business can be used to solve any kind of problem that exists in the sport industry. A lot of time we are, using the narrative of sport as being a fantastic driver for social change, and this is very true, and we are coming back to that later. But we also need to remember that sport, as any other industry, has its own problem, whether it is racism in stadiums, whether it is gender equality. Sport is definitely not best in class when it comes to gender equality, and all the problem that you are touching, which is wealth distribution, basically, because what we're saying is that you have a handful of athletes earning millions, and a lot of the other having difficulties in financing their career. So to answer maybe your question, I guess that the whole point about social business is trying to find a structural way to solve these problems. And when it comes to athletes empowerment, economic empowerment, there are many different ways and ways that actually exist since decades in the social business ecosystem, and one of the very, very simple yet effective one is entrepreneurship. So basically what we're trying to bring to the table is that of course an athlete that needs to train for 5-6 hours a day or more, depending on the sport, they will not necessarily have a good fit with 9 to 5, 9 to 6, 9 to 7 p.m. job. Entrepreneurship is actually not only a great way that fits with the athlete agenda, but it's also fits with the way they approach life. Going from A to B and sorting things out as time goes. So let's say the idea behind social business in that specific sense is, how do we make sure that every athlete, as early as possible, when they learn how to be an athlete, how do they become an entrepreneur as well, and how do they see their sport career as an entrepreneurial journey? Because from that moment, if you provide, the infrastructure, if you provide the knowledge, the tools, and all the environment that goes to help the athletes become an entrepreneur as well as they become athletes, then you cut a lot of the problems at the root, which are linked to financing a career, but also to transitioning a career. Because if you start a business while you're still competing, then you know that you always have something and something to not only finance yourself but also to spend your time on. So basically, some of these solutions we're bringing it through programs that we are delivering to different organizations, the International Olympic Committee, the French Development Agency, and so on and so forth. Basically, what we're providing entrepreneurship program for athletes, providing them the skills, the tools, the access to connections, sometimes even to funding, so that they can start their business and solve their own situation.
Yes, true, and especially in an athlete's career, it's very short term, and athletes should think about their transition later on. And social business, or thinking like a business, is a way forward, especially sometimes also when their career is interrupted brusquely by an injury or something. While working in parallel on something else, having this motivation to do something instead of just losing everything they've been working on is also a kind of motivation. And I know from myself, when I achieve something outside of sports, it's reflect on my competition on the field of play as well. So I get like the same motivation on working towards a goal and also working towards achieving something in the business world. It's similar. So yeah, I think athletes should start, regardless of their level, they should start thinking about how can I build my own business, especially elite athletes who already have a brand. They are already established and have a brand out there. Yoan, there is also the component around the athletes and how social business is used not only for professional athletes, but as a mean for social change. And as an example, we have the International Olympic Committee Young Leaders Program, who mainly the International Olympic Committee gave young people the opportunity to apply their projects and request projects and fund them to actually make a change in their own communities. And this came from the idea of a social business, so trying to find a problem in their community and solve it through sports. And we've seen different projects tackling the environment, gender equality, even education through sports, and many other SDGs. Based on this example, how can we leverage social business, use social business to leverage this power of sport in the world, and not only specifically to professional sports, but to really make an impact in the environment we live in?
Absolutely, yes, Christel, and you're really right on mentioning the International Olympic Committee Young Leaders Program, which is a fantastic example of how we were discussing just before about some of the issues that we can tackle in sports with social business, but there's also a lot of leverage that we can use from the power that sport has in the society. And these young leaders all around the world from the International Olympic Committee have really much understood that. And the idea is to, from our side, is to support them with the social business twist, with the social business skills, so that they can actually go in their community and solve the problems that you mentioned, whether they are environment-based, whether they are diabetes-based, etc., etc. More generally, if we take one step backward, solving issues through sport is something that can be extremely powerful, in the sense that and it's you were right earlier to mention Nelson Mandela's quote of sport has the power to change the world. What we like to see in there is not only this sentence, because we do believe that sport indeed has a very strong power, but the idea is, how do we identify this power? And how do we use it as a vehicle so that we actually can create change? And that's where social business become a very, very efficient tool. You know, it's not only about what I'm meaning here is not, it's not only about, you know, sending some footballs to some poor kids into some poor countries and say that it will change their life, because this is not how it happens. It takes a bit more of planning and a bit more of understanding of how the sport power works, and especially what is this power of sport. If you look into, if you make a list of these powers, I mean, there's a few that really, will be highlighted. The first one is the economic power. Sport is one of I mean, it's a big industry. It's 1.3 trillion US dollar business. If you take that at the scope of one event, the Olympics, it's a 7 billion euros project. In Paris, this is more or less, give or take, the budget that we're talking about. In comparison, this is the amount of money, this is more or less the budget of Paris for an entire year. So we will spend for a 5 weeks event the same amount of money that there is for 1 year budget to the whole city of Paris. But what we need to remember is that this money only exists because of sport. So it's not money that could have gone to something else. It's money that comes from sport because of the sport industry. So actually what it is a fantastic opportunity that we have, and a great honor that we have to get the games organized in Paris and in France. So how do we maximize, you know, how do we use this economic power? Well, this is one of the examples that I like to give, is the ESS 2024 program, which basically think about the following. We have 7 billion euros, and all of this money goes to supplier of product and services for the organization of the games. How do we maximize within this, you know, within this pot of money, the amount that goes to social business suppliers? Because they will not only bring you the product or service that you need, so for example, the food for the athletes, but they will also do it in a way that comes with a social advantage. For example, they will work only with refugees or long-term unemployed people, or they will only source locally grown products. See, so you will have the exact same product, which is the food, but a complete different results in the social and environmental terms. So this is the kind of thing that we're trying to do to, you know, leverage the economic power as well. And there are many other powers. If you look into the power of attraction that sport has, you know, yes. Not a lot of sector can say that, you know, half the planet is in front of the TV screen to see something. You know, the sport is one of the only sector. So how do we do to use that, and what can it translate into? So one of the application of that, what we like to call this attraction power of sport, is what happens in Ivory Coast. So the Agora is a sport center made out of recycled container in one of the poorest districts of Abidjan, which is the capital of Ivory Coast. And basically, because it is a very poor district, this is one of the only sport infrastructure, so it attracts a lot of young people, as you can imagine. These young people go there, but actually I was mentioning that this center is made out of recycled containers, and these recycled containers are all host of one social business that provide access to micro business incubation, affordable healthcare services, affordable eye care services. So basically, the young people go in this center to do sport, to play sport, but then they are exposed to a lot of things that they were not really exposed to before. And what is best is, because it is operating as a social business, each one of these containers has a business model, which means that they make a bit of profit. This profit can be used to pay for a rental of the center, and then the center operates self-sustainably itself. So you see, here again, we are able to use that attraction power that sport has to bring the young people, use a social business technique, and then provide access to many more things, whether it is education, you know, incubation of business, micro finance inclusion, etc., etc. So these are, let's say, two examples maybe on how we can use this very particular power that sport has to be bringing, social change in the life of people.
Yeah, just to recap a bit what you said, for Paris 2024, mainly you have the money, so you thought about how to use the money in an efficient way to give back to the community. So, for example, instead of getting food from a very fancy place or whatever, the usual things that happen, you go, for example, to farmers who are in need and get, for example, the products from there. So just to give like an example, and in Agora, you use the attraction to attract people to the center and have like this circle of life combining different aspects and go repeating on and on. From other perspectives, if we go to the main problem, and for someone, for example, for an individual and not a company who wants to start their business through sports, and if they recognize, for example, a social issue, what is your advice for these people to how to start their social business if they identified a social problem already, and how to merge it into sports?
I guess it also depends who this person or individual is and which organization he or she represents. But I guess there is always a few rules to get started. And that's something that it's not an answer from me. It's actually Einstein that said that. He said when a person asks me a question, I spend 99% of the time thinking about the question and 1% of the time thinking about the answer. And I feel that this is really much when we translate that into problem solving and into business. It really is about understanding the problem. This is really the key, because from the moment the problem is very much understood, there is the solution actually becomes just obvious. So I think that this is one very important thing, and there are many different quotes from different people from the startup scene, which is also fall in love with the problem and not with the solution that you have to offer. So that's, I think that this is one of the main aspects would be, of course, knowing the problem by heart. Starting small is the second one, which is also obvious and comes back a lot. But I think that most of the successful entrepreneur, and in particular, if we take the example of Professor Yunus, starting small has always been what guarantees success, in the sense that if we are able to solve one person's problem, then there is high chances that other people that encounters this problem, even in other parts of the world, can be addressed in this way. And finally, I would say the last thing that I would say is find the right channel. And as I was mentioning, it depends a bit also who the person represents. Like if that person that you're referring to is an athlete, then at Yunus Sports Hub we have many different athlete entrepreneurship programs. So if that person would have more would like to start a social business with a focus on Africa, we have a program with the French Development Agency to do so. If this is more to start a profit-based business just to finance the career or the post-career, then we may be looking more into program that we're doing with the International Olympic Committee. If the person that needs help is more of an NGO, we also have we are also starting to create a program which aims at helping NGOs to transform themselves into social business. So there are many different, let's say, points of contact, but in any case, the first thing that they should do is just get in touch.
I'm happy that you tackled the NGO, because a lot of people, when I explain what is a social business, they always refer to it as an NGO. So what is the difference between an NGO and a social business, just for people to have a clear idea of the difference between the both?
I mean, traditionally, I mean, it's mainly linked to the model in which they operate, and I would say that most of the people, most of the audience are some of the best experts in social business in the world. So I'm not speaking here as an expert, but rather under their control. But basically, it's mainly linked to the way they get financed. So NGO will rather look into a charity model and a grant model, when a social business will have a self-sustainable model based on an actual business model.
Do you think, following your experience working with the International Olympic Committee and other entities, do a big sporting organizations are looking into social business, or do you think they are still taking the old business mindset and working in it?
I think that generally, I mean, our experience has been that the social business, I mean, advocating about social business excites them a lot, in the sense that it allows them to reach the same objective, which is a social or environmental objective, but in a more economically efficient way. Because of course, as you know, in a social business, a dollar, Professor Yunus quote, in charity, a dollar has only one life, but in social business, it has endless lives. So I guess that it is always something that excites them for two reasons. The first reason is, as I mentioned, the economic efficiency, because with the same amount of money, we can do many more activities. But it's also, I think, something that is very beneficial for them when I think about sport governance entity, so that they can reflect on what is their purpose, what is it that they are here for. So when you think about, of course, an organization, I will take any example like the International Federation of Volleyball, where they're here to organize the volleyball organization around the world, so tournaments, teams, etc., etc. But when it's about, for example, beach volleyball or volleyball, what is it, for example, that beach volleyball stands for? Beach volleyball stands for a clean beach. Otherwise there's not even a place for beach volleyball. So from that moment where sport organizations, sport governance body understand, what is their place in the society beyond the very, practical aspect of organizing events, etc. This becomes an interesting discussion with social business, because how are we supporting them to move away from, what we call corporate social responsibility, and which is just, okay, I am doing that, and then on the side, I would just do the minimum to be, to actually change and say, okay, I can use the exact same amount of money, but actually create a business to eradicate a problem that I'm standing for. So I feel that this is for us the main source of happiness, is when we see that we are actually shift the mindset of people from, we are just doing that because this is something that we need to do as part of the business, to actually this becomes a real asset, and we are transitioning and using a social business way to do it.
We've discussed so far how social business how sports can combined with social business can have an impact on the wider world, or if you want, have a social impact. And we discussed in the athletes part how social business can help sports directly. How can social business help these organizations in itself? You talked about efficiency. What else can social business contribute to these sporting organizations, especially now after the COVID situation and the drop that we've seen economically in the world in the past year?
I guess I think that the answer to this question is at the same time pretty simple, in the sense that it brings a different model. We're not saying that the charity model is wrong and is bad. They do a fantastic job, and you have thousands and thousands and thousands, especially in the sport for development sector, thousands of organizations doing a fantastic job. They are, they know their beneficiaries. They are every day on a daily basis with them. They bring them support. They bring them a lot of time, their investment, their stress as well. They know how to influence community locally. They are deeply rooted with them. So there is nothing wrong with NGOs. What we are saying is that social business offers them a model that has a few advantages. So we are advocating to look into that. Because if you look at the way that traditionally, charity operates, there is one first problem, which you have mentioned, with a crisis like COVID. A lot of the financier in the charity, model are, money is getting scarcer and scarcer. So there is a problem of continuity. A lot of projects have needed to stop because there was no money anymore due to COVID. Then the second problem, which social business can help, is to counter the effect of bad resource allocation. Because when you look into charity and social business, you may think, okay, it's easier on the very short term to find 100,000 euro to finance my project through charity. And it may be easier. But if you look onto the medium term and the long term, all of these system needs a fundraiser, it needs an impact manager, it needs a lot of people to report, so these are all of the, let's say, resources that are allocated to the system itself. It does not create necessarily a value to the beneficiary. It is a system to just measure and validate, the system itself. So basically what we're doing, we are fundraising to pay the fundraiser. I mean, at least a part of it. So it's a funny model. And then finally, maybe even on a more, let's say, conceptual aspect, when you look into charity, there you have a lot of these organizations that are getting very good at getting grants. And the reason why they are getting very good at getting grants is because they are adapting their activities in function of the grants, which means that they could have initially a very noble cause and a very noble mission, but step by step they're drifting away from it because this is not where the money is. And money comes with condition, and they need to fulfill conditions, so they adapt what they do in function of where the money comes from. So there is more generally and more conceptually a risk of mission drift. So social business, because you do not need this external input somehow when you are a real social business, then there is not you're not taking this risk. The great thing about that, I mean, we're of course not reinventing the wheel here. You have fantastic projects that are already doing that, and I invite you all the audience to look into projects such as Scalistan, which is, for example, they are selling very high quality shirts in Europe, so in skating shops, to finance skating school for young girls in Afghanistan, to provide education to young girls in Afghanistan through skating. In the same way, you have projects like Amigos del Mar in Colombia, in Tierra Bomba, which is basically using recycled plastic from the beach to create surf spare parts. And with this money that they are doing, that they are generating through the sale of these surf spare parts, they are also financing an informal schooling system for dropout kids. So you have already these examples existing. What we are trying to do at Yunus Sports Hub is we are trying to make that the norm. We are trying to make sure that all the NGOs understand, that they are already doing a great job, and understand that they have an alternative, which is to also develop social business models in the sense of what they are doing.
Thank you, Yoan. Actually, I remember when I joined the Yunus Sports Hub and the Social Business Champions, Amy used to tell me that don't look where you are working to get the money. Try to think outside, ideas that are maybe not related directly, but as you said, for example, T-shirts are sold in Europe to fundraise in Afghanistan. So we don't have to stick to one location, or for example, like the business to be like we deliver this product and we're getting our money from this product. So it's like the variety of resources that we can think about when it comes to social business and how to find the money, because that's one of the questions that come to mind. Okay, I have my idea, I have my project, I have this problem that I want to solve, and then how can I get the money, or where to find the money? So, and here starts the brainstorming of ideas, how to find the money. Yoan, in this case,
absolutely, and you know, and this is a very good comment that you're making here, Christel, because this is just the application of very simple concepts that exist in the, you know, in the business industry. In the, you know, these are just business techniques that are you know, used by thousands and thousands of companies out there, and somehow we never thought that they could be applied to you know, to organization doing some good. We thought that the only model to do good was to take money from rich people, and you know, so this is actually something that is important. You know, any business techniques that, you know, we are using in the traditional, of course, in the framework of the law, right? But any you know, business technique is something that can be used for social business to develop, and for former NGO to, you know, transform into social businesses.
It's interesting that you also mentioned about the NGOs, and that's the question that I asked you before, and how they are looking for sustainability. So one of the main component of social business is to try to think long-term and how to regenerate money to have this circle unstoppable between pandemics, between anything that can happen during in the real life. Yoan, I want to ask you, what's the difference between social business, because we talked a lot about social business and how it can have an impact on society and all these, and sports for development, because these are two terms that are, when you think about them, that they are related. So what is the difference between the two?
I would say that they are not on the same register, in the sense that sports for development is basically what we call the sports for development sector, is generally all these organizations that are trying to create solutions using sport as a tool. So that's, I would say, the general framework, the general spectrum. Then social business can place itself within this spectrum as all of these organizations that do it in a self-sustainable way, right? Using, you know, the principles of social business. So I think that it's not that there is a difference between two. I think that social business is an option for any sport for development organization. And so any organization that is starting can become a social business, or any organization that already exists and that is today an NGO can transform into a social business. It doesn't mean that they become a social business from one day to another, because of course, you know, they have salaries to pay, they have you know, they have costs to cope up with. But that means that they can start the transition step by step. Any euro that they would manage to create themselves through the generation of business model will be a euro that they won't have to fundraise for. So it is not necessarily something that happens overnight. It can take, you know, a few months, a few years sometimes. But this is, we think, very healthy, because it, you know, it frees them from this constraint of always going to go and ask money for the reason that I mentioned before, which can cause problem, whether it is because of continuity, because the resources are going scarce, because of resource allocation, because it's actually costful and costly to have a charity model, and because of the risk of mission drift.
Okay, this relates to our current situation in Lebanon, for example, because we're going through an economic crisis, and the sports industries, like their last thing that they're gonna think about is sports right now. So we have this always this answer that we can't find money. So how can we translate this idea of social business into even local federations, and not only international federations who have the budget and who have this mindset, and they have the resources, they have the power to do something, to small local organizations who don't have maybe the resources, or who are trying to find for ways to finance or market themselves. How can we start, if you want, not as individuals but as small local organizations? Where do we start if we want to really make a change in this aspect?
I think that you actually already gave the answer in your question. It is really a mindset. It's really a mindset matter. When you start a project, any kind of project, it can be very, convenient to just ask somebody else for the money. It takes less time. If you find this money, if you find somebody that is willing to give this money, against, a few reports and a few measurements and stuff, then it is easier. I think it takes a bit longer, and that's we come back to the explanation I was giving before. To on the long term and on the medium term, it is better to involve a bit of time at the beginning and start small and operating a model that is self-sustainable. Because from the moment that it is self-sustainable and that you reach that you can solve the problem of 1 person, 2 person, 3 person, then you can solve the problem of everybody, because you have found that hack that will make that you will be able to implement it and scale it. So I think that this is the only advice that I would give, is really about the mindset. Take a bit more time at the beginning to solve the problem in a self-sustainable way, and then you have these three pieces of advice that I gave earlier, with spending time to understanding the problem, starting small, and of course finding the right track to request for help, which are also very valid in this sense and in this case.
Thank you, Yoan. I'm actually not gonna accept this, the answer of we don't have the money. I'm gonna be replying with try to find your own money for the local federations. I think we have covered a lot today. And as we promised since the beginning, we've covered the definition of sports and social business, the concept of it, how it functions. We've provided concrete examples from international organizations and also individuals from the globe. IOC, Paris 2024, Aroga, and Agora and the Ivory Coast. And we've put like the vision of how to achieve sports development through social business. I would like to thank you once again, Yoan, and Yunus Sports Hub also for my personal initiative, but also Yunus Sports Center and Professor Yunus for having this conversation today. And I hope for the attendees that they will leave the session fully equipped with what is social business, how can they use it to tackle sports issues, even social issues, and to go outside, to leave this session and really have an impact in the world, and combine both sports and social business to make this world a bit better than it was yesterday. And I hope you all benefited from the advice of Yoan and from our experiences to really start small and start somewhere to make an effective change. So thank you all, and I'm gonna pass it to Zinat to conclude the session. Zinat.
Thank you, Christel.
Thank you, Yoan.
Thank you very much. It has been a great conversation, and thank you for touching on so many topics. I think some of the some of our audience members may be wondering how sports and social business can link, and I'm sure after this conversation, many of your questions are answered. Thank you for addressing all of these important questions to Christel and Yoan. From our end, as you know, this is our YSBC Web Lecture Series. We want to communicate through these sessions to our students of the YSBC universities, of which we have 90 now. And a lot of universities have, sports is a big part of universities and globally. So if our YSBC students or academics watching are interested to pursue on social business and sports, please do connect to Yoan and the Yunus Sports Hub. They're always there to help you. And I'm sure through the Sports Hub and the support of all our colleagues, maybe many social business will pop out of through this. So I hope this lecture acts as a launching board for this, and we can get many more social business in sports involving young people in the future. So thank you very much for being a part of this lecture. And we look forward to having you all in our Social Business Day, which is another big event coming up very soon. From June 28th to July 2nd, we'll be having our Social Business Day. Like every year, we have our program. This is our gala event. Which is happening in June, and for the first time, it's going to be, 5 days of events that we are going to be doing virtually, and some physical sessions or live sessions are going to be held in some universities in Uganda and Kampala in Uganda. So I welcome all of you to join them. They're going to be live streamed. You're going to be able to watch them through our Facebook channel, social media. You'll be seeing more information about registration, the sessions that are happening, who's speaking on our Yunus Center Facebook page and our social media. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing all of you in those events. Now I kindly request Mr. Aziz to play the slideshow for that. Mr. Aziz, thank you. Thank you very much. See you all again in our next sessions. Thank you. Bye-bye.